Hey, look, I called out the Republicans when they use dangerous rhetoric, and I want to call out the Democrats when they use dangerous rhetoric. So, welcome. You've come to my corner, and I do thank you for that. I am the DM as always. Boy, oh boy, do we got a problem. This individual, Democratic Representative Jones here, from the 17th District in New York, as you can see from that title right there, it's not looking good.
Our lives the same as you did when you were kids, but we can't let you get away with this anymore. Enough is enough. Enough of you telling us that school shootings are a fact of life. We, like ours, has virtually ended it.
The Republicans aren't saying it's a fact of life. In fact, I'm going to pull that up right now. There was something on Twitter that I need to pull up. Give me a second. Alright, so I found the actual article that the Twitter post was citing. So this says, 4 in 10 Republicans think mass shootings are, quote, unfortunately something we have to accept as part of a free society, end quote. Now, the poll they're talking about is this one right here, in which there is no indication as to which side is voting, mind you. So I'm not entirely sure why why they seem to think that it's Republicans. But even assuming that they know that it's Republicans voting, the particular answer or question that they're referring to is this one right here, number 10. Now you may notice something immediately that comes out as strikingly obviously fact. It says, do you feel that mass shootings are unfortunately something we have to accept as a part of a free society? And would you look at that, 28% of respondents responded to this one, while 72% said that they are something we can prevent and stop if we really tried. Yahoo, you're a fucking liar. 28% of respondents said that it is. So not only are they lying about the actual statistics, they're lying about who is actually voting. Now, if y'all can provide me with some kind of evidence as to who exactly is voting, sure. But even if it is Republicans, it's 28% of these respondents, not 44%. So that's what this idiot is referring to. So he's wrong in that regard.
Enough of you blaming mental illness and then defunding mental health care in this country.
While a fair assessment in its own right, what about the police that the Democrats wanted to defund and then go and call the police, and then when the police don't respond, want to sit there and blame the police? How are you going to sit there and defund the police and then blame those police for not responding in a timely manner when you call for them? Argument goes both ways.
Enough of your thoughts and prayers, enough.
I can agree with that. But the Democrats need to stop doing it too, because the Democrats are doing the same fucking thing. They're giving their thoughts and prayers. So if you want to say that enough is enough, which he's about to do, and I can understand he's angry on this, if enough is enough, then enough is enough on your side as well.
Enough. You will not stop us from advancing the Protecting Our Kids Act today. You will not stop us from...
Now, here's where the dangerous rhetoric begins. Again, I understand that he's angry. I'm angry too. A lot of us are. However, you need to be careful about your words, Mr. Representative, because while Trump and Cruz and Greg Abbott use a lot of dangerous rhetoric that incites a lot of things, What you are doing is the exact same thing.
Passing it in the House next week, and you will not stop us there. If the filibuster obstructs us, we will abolish it.
No, you won't. The filibuster was put in place specifically to prevent one side or the other from taking full power. You will not abolish the filibuster, because if you do, there will be riots in the street greater than what happened when George Floyd was murdered. You think that those riots were bad. Here's the thing. A lot of those riots weren't even about the George Floyd thing. They were happening while the peaceful protests were happening. And the media, the mass media, and a lot of politicians, especially on the Democratic side, blamed the riots on the protesters. Even though it wasn't the protesters. It was just a bunch of fuck-offs that weren't even from those states. So no, you are not going to destroy the filibuster.
If the Supreme Court objects, we will expand it, and we will not...
You hear that? If the Supreme Court, the final law of the land, the one that says no, he just said with his own words, if the Supreme Court objects, we will expand it. Meaning, if the Supreme Court objects, we will put more people that agree with us onto it. You know what the Supreme Court judges are supposed to be? Entirely impartial. They're supposed to be 1,000% unbiased on all subject matter, regardless of what it is. They're supposed to be entirely unbiased. They're supposed to be the most unbiased people in America. They're appointed to life on the thought that they won't be able to be bribed or manipulated or biased in some way. But what he just said, let me play it back for you in case you missed it.
There. If the filibuster obstructs us, we will abolish it.
No, you won't.
If the Supreme Court objects, we will expand it, and we will abolish it. If the Supreme Court objects, we will expand it, and we will not rest until we have taken weapons of war out of circulation. And
you hear that? If the filibuster stops us, we will abolish it. If the Supreme Court opposes us, we will expand it. The Democrats are trying to take control. If you don't believe me, go watch my previous video with Yuri Bezmenov, a KGB defector who warned us way back then that this was happening. They used to be subtle about it, now they're being overt. They're being blatant. They're not even trying to hide what they're doing. He straight up just said they're going to abolish the filibuster and they're going to get rid of anyone on the Supreme Court by just putting more people that specifically agree with them.
in our communities. Each and every day, we will do whatever it takes to end gun violence, whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes to end gun violence. Remember back when I told you about what Greg Abbott said and how he spoke in absolutes and how I stated that was dangerous rhetoric? And if you don't remember, or maybe you didn't see the video, I'll quote you verbatim and you can go back to that video and look up the article to see all for yourself. He said, and I quote, "Anybody who shoots someone else has a mental health challenge, period." Word for word, verbatim. And if you don't believe me, I'll link you the article myself. He's a Republican. Okay? I believe he's a Republican. And that was dangerous rhetoric. I didn't like that. That's extremely dangerous. And what he's saying is on the same level of danger.
We have taken weapons of war. Alistair obstructs us. we will abolish it. If the Supreme Court objects, we will expand it, and we will not rest until we have taken weapons of war out of circulation in our communities. Each and every day, we will do whatever it takes.
I also have another question for you, Mr. Whatever the fuck your name was. Mr. Jones, I guess. Weapons of war. What is that? Is it any weapon that's used in war? Because if it's any weapon that's used in war, then that means you have to take all guns out of circulation. Because all guns can be used in wars. Which means you're trying to disarm the law-abiding American populace. Just like Hitler, just like China, just like every other totalitarian regime built on tyranny. Yuri Bezmenov warned us about this after he defected from the KGB. If you don't know who the KGB is, it's the Russian intelligence.
To end gun violence, whatever it takes. What we will do is not fail the children of this country the way that you have failed us. The generations of Columbine, Sandy Hook, Parkland, and Uvalde. I yield back, Madam Chair.
I would also, while I'm not denying that school shootings are horrific, of all of the shootings that have happened in America that were school shootings, Sandy Hook and Uvalde are the only ones to exceed 10 fatalities. In fact, if I remember correctly, they're the only two to exceed 10 people involved, whether they be fatalities or injured. Columbine might have been one, I'm not entirely sure, it might have been 3. But there have been a lot of them, and most of them, yes, had at least one fatality, if I remember correctly, but the vast majority of them were injured, because the vast majority of them were not committed with assault weapons. They were not committed by these guns that people aren't even taught about. These things that people don't even know about until it's too late. Alright, now, we have another video, because that one was extremely short, of the Republicans' response.
More tonight about the Democrats' anti-Second Amendment agenda. We tried to warn you before the election, as the House is now set to vote on bills this week to expand gun background checks. You know, we already have background checks, prompting strong pushback from conservatives and Republicans alike, who explain that it's really just part of the larger effort to restrict our Second Amendment rights to firearms and, of course, increase government surveillance of gun owners. Now, there's Texas Congressman Chip Roy earlier today laying it all out on the House floor. Take a look.
And now my Democratic colleagues, after defunding the police, opening up our borders, want to take away our God-given right, yes, God-given right to defend ourselves under the Second Amendment. That's what this is about. This is about creating a gun registry to track guns of the American people. There is no way to implement what the Democrats are trying to implement without doing that.
Joining us with reaction, syndicated radio host Dana Lash and Fox and Friends weekend co-host Pete Hegseth. All right, we're all big believers in the Second Amendment. I've had to, Dana, in the state of New York at one point. I've been a pistol marksman since I'm 11 years old. My mom was a prison guard. My dad worked in family court probation. When they said you can only have 7 bullets in a magazine, I went to 7 bullets. I obey all the laws, and they changed it back. But the point is, it is so restrictive in states like New York already. Where do you see this going?
Yeah, Sean, and that's a great point. And really, you know, come to...
All right, the rest of this doesn't matter. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, the rest of that doesn't matter. It's just the news doing news things. This brings up a really, really disgusting point. We saw with the Uvalde shooting that politicians from both sides jumped on it. What they didn't jump on was this other one that this man, Joel Patrick, will gladly tell you.
Mainstream media isn't going to tell you. A racial supremacist shot 29 people on a New York City subway, and here's the story that the mainstream media isn't going to tell you. He wasn't a white supremacist, so they didn't take this one and run, and they couldn't pull the gun laws argument because his gun was not registered. But despite all of the evidence being present that this was a racially motivated hate crime against white and Asian people, since if you looked at the shooter's YouTube channel, you could watch videos where he ranted against white people and even expressed his displeasure that Ketanji Brown Jackson was married to a white man. He continued to yell racial epithets as he shot at white and Asian people and even shot a pregnant woman. The issue today is that we are too focused on the race of people doing horrific crimes and not focusing on the fact that hate has no color and people can be evil and do decrepit things regardless of their skin color. I'm more concerned that someone was able to shoot that many people without being stopped than I am with their skin color. If this had occurred in Texas, Kentucky, or Ohio, that gunman would have been met by another gun and he would have been stopped. Gun laws do not work because bad guys don't follow the law, and white supremacy is not some crazy, outlandish threat that supersedes all other forms of supremacy. We need to focus on creating a culture that does not feed hate. My name is Joel Patrick, and I hope you're having a wonderful day.
Now, the video he is talking, or the shooting he's talking about is this one right here. And you can see right here, this is on the cityjournal.org. And it's titled, "Averting Our Eyes. The New York Subway Massacre has roots in mental illness, but the shooter's delusions were likely fed by the relentless cultivation of racial resentment." And I've been watching a lot of videos from people like Candace Owens, Jordan Peterson, and a lot of other far more intelligent people than me. And when you look at what they say, and then you look at what, I mean, I'm going to keep pointing back to him, what Yuri Bezmenov said, this is exactly what's happening in America. This is exactly what's happening in America. And it starts by saying, had a white male entered a New York subway car in a construction vest and gas mask, carrying a hatchet, a 9mm handgun, extended ammo magazines, gasoline fireworks, and 2 smoke grenades. Had he then shot off at least 33 rounds, hitting 10 people, the Biden administration and the media would have immediately raised an alarm about white nationalist violence. The shooter's race would have led every story about such an attempted massacre. Pundits would have immediately speculated about hate crime and domestic terrorism. And we saw that with Uvalde. They jumped on it immediately. But then those other potential massacres that could have happened but were thankfully stopped, all of those happened in the same week. In fact, just 2, maybe 3 days after. They don't say anything about. All these things that are happening afterwards, they're not saying anything about. Because no one's dying. It's not going to make big headlines. They can't use it for their own political gain. If you want to read this, I mean, you can either pause the video and look through it, and pull it up yourself, or whatever. But this right here, and here's another one from CJR, the Columbia Journalism Review. That's talking about it, of course. But you don't see any politicians saying anything about it. And here's just one last thing that I wanted to add in here about all of this that's happening, because people don't seem to be able to open their fucking eyes and look at what's actually happening. This one is, of course, covering the same Brooklyn subway car that was shot at on Tuesday morning. And Tucker Carlson, I almost agreed with him. I hate the man with a passion, but I almost agreed with him until I read the full thing. And here's what he said. He said, "We do not know he was not a white supremacist, so we're betting the media are not going to dwell on this," Carlson opined in the opening minutes of his Tuesday evening broadcast. "There's nothing to gain from covering this particular atrocity, just another mass shooting in the big city. It's so sad," he lamented, before not dwelling on the subject and instead launching a 15-minute segment about Elon Musk and Twitter. It's on both sides. Tucker Carlson literally called out the fact that they're not going to cover it because it's just another mass shooting, so they're just not going to cover this particular atrocity. And then he himself completely ignores it and begins to rant about something completely unrelated. This is happening on all sides. Yes, there are some that are truly fighting for the best, but there are so many that aren't. They're fake kings upon fake thrones put there by fake idiots. Actually, I shouldn't call them fake idiots because they're not fake. They're actual idiots. As they're the ones putting these people up there without actually understanding the details of what they're doing. Just remember, the Democrats themselves are the ones that said it.
The Protecting Our Kids Act today. You will not stop us from passing it in the House next week, and you will not stop us there. If the filibuster obstructs us, we will abolish it. If the Supreme Court objects, we will expand it, and we will not rest until we have taken weapons of war out of circulation in our communities. Each and every...
Remember, folks, this was not a Republican that said this. This was a Democrat. Yuri Bezmenov warned us. Plenty of people have warned us. And if we don't wake up, and I'm not talking about getting woke, because that's stupid. What I'm talking about is if we don't wake up and look and recognize the fake kings and take them off of their fake thrones, we'll become another Venezuela. I guarantee it. This has been your DM. Thank you for coming to my corner. I'll see you next time.